Hey folks, welcome back. I've got this 1999 Ford F-350 in here. It's a cabin chassis, 7.3 liter Powerstroke, and this thing loses oil pressure, low oil pressure, excuse me, loses low oil pressure after the engine gets warm. I mean, when the engine starts up and runs, and matter of fact, it hasn't gone anywhere in probably about 2 years, and I just pulled it out of the back of my boneyard because I didn't have any chance to get anything done with it earlier. But yeah, it starts up, runs just fine, and well, is making a little bit of a knocking sound. We'll get into that a little bit later, because this is possibly going to be kind of a serious problem. We're actually going to be pulling the engine out. So, anyways, you get about maybe 15-20 psi of oil. I've got an actual oil pressure gauge plumbed into it, and then when it warms up, when you're driving 1800 RPM, give or take, or something like that, you're running about 25 psi. But then you pull up to a stop and go sign, you let it idle, it drops down below, where the gauge reads 0. The gauge in the dash, which I think drops below with 7 psi, I think 7 or 10. So we're below 10, and then the gauge drops off, the oil light comes on, and then if you let it run long enough, it starts to run like crap because it's running out of oil, because it's not getting pumped up in here to the reservoir quick enough, until you can rev the engine up and then get the oil flow back inside of there. We did have this pickup a few years ago, where we tried to fix some stuff on what we thought might be something simple enough, like the low pressure oil pump. We pulled apart the bypass valve and all that stuff, where the oil cooler and all that stuff, where the oil filter mounts onto. There's like a check valve ball or something or other, I can't remember all of it. Made sure all that stuff was good. It wasn't until we just started kind of driving it around a little bit more that it kind of developed a knocking sound somewhere over here. Did drain the oil, did find some pretty good sized chunks of metal, which what it looks like is either a main bearing or a connecting rod bearing or something like that, because and that's most likely where our, and it's probably not bad enough where, it obviously hasn't seized the engine or thrown a rod or anything like that yet, but I'm sure that crankshaft's no good, and I'm pretty sure that, that might be where we're getting our knocking sound. Why would it lose oil pressure when you have something like that? Well, when the engine is designed in such a way, that they want to know how they want so much oil flow, throughout the engine. And there's going to be certain things, such as, like underneath the piston's going to have these little jets underneath there that's going to like squirt oil, so as the oil's pressurized enough if it squirts. Well, just because, when you lose oil, when it squirts through that little jet area, you lose a little bit of pressure, and you're going to lose a little bit of pressure all along eventually through the system. By the time you get to where the oil's, draining back in there, so you get something like a rod bearing or a connecting rod bearing or a main bearing or something like that. Well, it's got its certain tolerances, and it's kind of like you take let's just envision, you can envision this being an air hose too, but more just like a water hose. Turn the water on, and the water's coming out, right? You're just spraying your driveway off right here. Well, there's no pressure per se in here because there's no restriction. It's just coming out. We would be talking about it like from the valve, because anything, prior to the valve, that's going to have pressure. That's going to be different because you can turn on a few different valves, like in your house and stuff like that. But let's just talk about it from the valve there. There's no pressure. It's just flowing out of there until you restrict it, like going down with your thumb like that, and you could be spraying all that stuff. Well, now you're increasing the pressure, but you're making a smaller pull, so that's where you get the faster water coming up. That's kind of the same idea as this. So if it's spun a bearing and the bearing piece came out of there, well, now there's just too much clearance in there that it just can't hold the pressure. It's just like taking your finger away from there. And so we've got good oil flow, we just don't have good oil pressure, and that's what we're losing. We've had the valve covers off. We've had all that stuff. It's not in the valve train or anything like that. And I suspect that piece, it was kind of a curved piece, you know, it was about that long, but it was somewhat curved, but it was damaged a lot. But I'm almost 100% it's some kind of a rod bearing or something that's spun. This thing has on the dash, it says it has 179,000 miles on it, but miles aren't everything, depending on, you know, because I've seen like this pickup here, it's been a fairly hard 179,000 miles, whereas I've seen pickups with 400,000 on here in a lot better shape, and this one's going to need some work. But anyways, this is part one here. Basically what we're going to end up doing is here in the next few days and stuff like that, we're going to get this engine pulled out of here and get it tore down and figure out what's going on and update you from there. Kind of just, you know, just doing a little bit of a info type of thing, as to, you know, because if you're having an issue where you're losing the oil pressure and all that kind of stuff, well, you might have, the bummer thing is you might have something as serious as what we most likely have going on here. Pretty much exhausted everything we could do as far as, you know, being able to troubleshoot this without pulling the engine and whatnot. You know, some people will, well, I'll drop the oil pan. Yeah, you can do that. These oil pans are hard to get out of here. Matter of fact, it says even in the service data and all that kind of stuff to pull the engine, to reseal the oil pan and all that. I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to end up finding, so I'm not even going to worry about that. We're just going to get it pulled out of here. It's probably easier to do that than it is to, you know, undo them. I mean, I don't know, you know, but most likely that's what we're going to end up finding. So anyways, stay tuned for part two, and thanks for watching.